Hello, Ayana Webb here. In this video, I'm going to share with you how to use your ear to be able to figure out chord progressions in a song. Even if you are a complete beginner, this video will work well for you. And if you watch until the end, I will give you some really cool tools to get you in the door when it comes to actual chord or playing actual chords in piano. So there's a few things you need to know before we begin if you are a complete beginner. The first thing is fingers have numbers in piano. Thumb is number 1, and it goes 2, 3, 4, 5, and the left hand is likewise. The thumb is number 1, and it goes 2, 3, 4, and 5. The other thing you need to know is at least the names of the white keys. So on piano, C is the white key to the left of the 2 black keys, and then it goes D, E, F, G, and then after G it goes A, and then B, and the next C. And the cycle starts over, so it's just C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. The same 7 white keys that repeat themselves up and down the piano, and the same 5 black keys. So we may be dealing with some black keys today, depending on how I approach this particular video. So here's the thing. The other thing you need to know is what are chords? Chords are a group of 3 or more notes that are played either together or separate, but they basically create a concept of what is happening in the song. So if I was to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star without chords, it would sound like this. With chords, it would sound like this. Right? So that is what chords sound like. So now, when we get into analyzing chords that happen in a song, one chord that happens after the other, or what we call in music theory chord progressions, meaning how do chords progress in a particular song, we need to know what it is that we're listening for. And a lot of people who are new to chords don't really know that there is a system that we follow that helps us narrow down to what chords we are dealing with. So let's say if we are dealing in the key of C. So what we're going to be talking about are chord degrees or the number system. So let's take the key of C, for example. Right? Now here, if we're in the key of C, right? We are dealing with the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. If we're in the key of C, C is note number 1, D is note number 2, E is note number 3, F is note number 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the next C just starts over back at number 1. Likewise with the chords that are attached to each of the keys. So if C is note number 1, then the C chord, where C is the root, is also chord number 1. If D is note number 2, then DFA, the D chord, is also chord number 2. The E chord is chord number 3, just like the E note is note number 3. The F chord is chord number 4. The G chord is chord number 5. A chord is chord number 6. The B chord is chord number 7. And then we are back to chord number 1, which is the C. Right? So when it comes to chord progressions, usually they'll either just give you the name of the chord or the root of the chord or a series of the roots of the chords to play. So if somebody were to say play C, G minor, A minor, F major, it would be the C chord, the G chord, the A chord, and then the F chord, right? So whatever the root is, that's the chord that you go to. Another way in which we navigate through songs is through numbers. So if somebody were to instead tell me to play 1, 5, 6, 4, that just means I play chord number 1 in whatever key I'm in. So if I'm in the key of C, that would be the C chord. And then the next chord I have to play is chord number 5, which in this case is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the G chord. And then they tell me to play chord number 6, which is the A chord right next door. And then they tell me to play the F chord, which is chord number 4, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the F chord, right? So it's important to understand how the number system works, because then you can use that as your template or as your guide when it comes to listening for chords in a particular song. So let's go into how you can use this tool to be able to hear chords that occur in a song. Before I get into that, I do want to bring to your attention, I do have a free Piano in 3 Steps video. If you are a complete beginner and want to get your foot in the door when it comes to learning piano, that 3 Steps video will go over everything from naming the keys to playing both hands together. The link for that is in the description box, so make sure you sign up for that free video before you leave this tutorial. So here, I want to just come up with a song. Well, not come up with a song. So let's take, I'm going to see if I can use an example of a song that I think everyone should know. The Hallelujah song. I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do ya? Right? You may not even know, or you haven't heard the song a bunch of times, but you may know it enough to hear, whether you realize it or not, the chords that are going on in the background. So let's take that song and put it in the key of C, right? I heard there was. So we'll go. So what I'm about to do is going to be a hybrid of a demonstration and also an exercise. So if I'm in the key of C and if I'm dealing with a song and I need to figure out the chords, I need to know what chords belong to that key, right? So if we're in the key of C, we've already broken down. C chord is number 1, D chord is number 2, E chord is number 3, F chord is number 4, G chord is number 5, A is number 6, and B is number 7. So in most cases, if we're dealing with a song in a particular key, we are only dealing with those chords that belong to that particular key. So in the case of the Hallelujah song, we only have to worry about, for the most part, there may be some exceptions, or there actually are some exceptions, but we won't go over that today. You only have to think about those 7 chords. Nothing outside of that for the most part. So here, we're going to break this down. We're only going to do just a few chords. We won't do the whole song, just enough for you to get the point. So if you know the chords that you're working with, now it's just a matter of hearing which chord is happening at what part of the song. If you don't have a reference in terms of sheet music, or if you don't have a tutorial, if you're listening to a song for the first time and you go, okay, I know the key of the song, let's say conveniently it's in the key of C, then it narrows down to what chords you're working with. So let's go through the Hallelujah song very slowly. So we know that there is a chord that happens in I heard there was. Now conveniently that happens to be chord number 1. Right? But now we need to figure out what the next chord is when he says secret chord. Now the good news is the melody in most cases gives us a clue as to what the chord would be. In most cases, the melody for that part is playing one of the 3 notes that belong to the chord. So there's 2 ways you can approach this. Either you can walk your way up the chord progression to figure out what chord it is. So let's do it that way. So we know that the first chord is chord number 1. Now, if you hear the song in your head, can you tell if chord number 2 is the correct chord? Automatically, you can hear that it's not chord number 2. So let's try chord number 3. Now, you may have some chords that may sound almost like the chord, but not quite the same. So let's try chord number 3. Not quite. Let's try chord number 4. maybe. If it's a maybe, it's probably a no. Let's try chord number 5. I need to move this camera over just a little bit. No, you can hear it's not the right chord. What about chord number 6? That sounds like a match, right? So the other way to think about this is, I heard there was a secret chord. So in this case, secret chord is being played by the A note. So that means that there's usually one of 3 possibilities. It's either going to be chord number 2, which has A in it, but we've already established it's not that chord. So the second chord that has the A in it is the F chord. We already know that's not the chord. So the only option we may have left is the A chord, where A is the actual root. Right? That's another way that you can narrow it down in terms of, okay, if I'm trying to figure out the chord for this part, what note is the melody singing and what chords have that note in that chord? So you can do it that way. So the next part that David played, and it pleased the Lord, you may have noticed that those chords actually sound like a repeat of the first 2 chords that we just did. So I heard there was, that David played goes back to chord number 1. So sometimes you'll even get repeats. Well, in most cases you will get repeats for chord progressions, which is why they're so easy to play. Now, the next part, but you don't really, what happens there? So we need to figure out what that chord is. So again, 2 ways you can work your way up the scale. So, but you, right? So here we can go, is it chord number 4? Is it chord number 1? But you don't really, not quite. Let's try chord number 2, which actually has A in it. But you don't really. It sounds like it could go there, but not quite. Let's keep going. What's chord number 3? But you don't really. Now we know that that doesn't work. What about chord number 4, which has A in it? But you don't really. It sounds like we have a match. So far, we figured out that the chord progression is 1, 6, 1, 6, 4. Chord number 1, number 6, back to chord number 1, back to chord number 6, and then chord number 4. Now this next chord you gotta be very careful, because when it comes in, the melody doesn't go right away to the chord, the note that belongs to that chord. It stays at A, right? Care. But you do hear that there's a change in the chords. So in this case, using the melody may not help you. So you may have to just go up the scale. So, but you don't really, is it chord number 1? Therefore, not really. Let's try chord number 2. But you don't really care for music. Not really. Let's try chord number 3. But you don't really care for music. Let's try chord number 5. But you don't really care for music. So it sounds like we have a match. And then for the word, do ya? Let's see if chord number 1 works for that part. So we got 4, 5, and then 1. But you don't really care for music, do ya? It sounds like we have a match. So I've used the chord scale to figure out what's happening chord-wise with the song. So we figured out that the Hallelujah song has a 1, 6, 1, 6, 4, 5, 1 chord progression. So that's pretty much how that works in terms of being able to analyze chord progressions in a real song. If you are somebody who does know about major and minor triads, and I did say I was going to provide you guys with a little surprise. So this is for my slightly more advanced players. If you want to get into understanding how lead sheets work, I do have a video, and I'll provide it at the top right corner of this link. If you want to check out that video on how to read lead sheets for triads, again, you kind of have to already know how major and minor and augmented and diminished triads work in order for that video to be helpful to you. So if you like this content, please not only subscribe, but also turn on the notification bell, because just because you subscribe does not mean that you will get notified whenever I put out these weekly videos. Turning on the notification bell will notify you or send you an alert when a new video gets put out once a week. So again, press the like button. It helps my videos get more views. Please share, and if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to help you from there. So thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial. Take care.